ଏଟାକୁ ଧୋଇଦିଅ ତମେ ମୁଗ ଦେଇ ଦେଖ ପୁରା କେମିତି ଧୋଇଛି
Jai Vishnu Bharat Paramahamsa Parivaja Stotara Sata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Singha Guru Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Madhukuri Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Ramacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prince Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Radhakund Shamakund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Ram Ki Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Shri Purushottam Kirti Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharaj Ki Shri Shri Radha Madhava Sakhi Vrinda Ki Shri Pancha Tattva Ki Shri Shri Prabhupada Srila Bhagavan Ki Shri Shri Radha Gopal Ju Ki Sankirtan Yajna Ki Brihad Madanga Bhakti Distribution Ki Shri Srimad Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj Gurudev Ki Gaur Premanandi Samudriya Bhakta Vrinda Ki All glories to the Assembly Devotees, all glories to the Assembly Devotees, all glories to the Assembly Devotees, all glories to Shri Shri We have a link. So I'm going to do so.
भांगी जीवन
सोजा के तो उल्टा दिख रहा है तू देखना भी नहीं
हाँ वर्टिकल वर्टिकल
वर्टिकल
ମୁଁ କରୁଛି ଭର୍ଟିକାଲ କରିବାକୁ ପଡ଼ିବ
Guraganya Gana Gochu Govinda Gurutama Gopyada Kopa Vriksha Gopala Gana Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Tama Adama Kichuna Vachi Vanjanchi Adivita Kola Kahe Premananda He Monando Ranga Hridaya
orientation is there orientation
Gopalam, Shri Kriya Kripaya Javi, Tataiva Samhayati Bhavan Vishishta Priyanjana, Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya, Sasanatana Rupaka, Gopala Raghunathan Vrajavana Pahiman, Amchakavaduru Vishchan, Kripa Sindhu Vishchan, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vaishnava Yoga Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I want to thank everybody for coming here today. I always feel really uncomfortable if I speak in front of my God brothers and God sisters like dominating. Can you hear me? If you come inside, it'll be better. There's no mic. But you can hear me in the room if you come in. I always feel uncomfortable that today's not so bad because she can't hear me. Little loss or uncomfortable. We're used to hearing from her grandmas. Dominic, I'd be very happy if you came in.
I'm getting old and I can't sit on the floor anymore.
It's been almost 30 years since Govinda's left.
Yeah, so I can't sit on the floor anymore.
So they asked me today to say something about our Guru Maharaj, but I don't like to just speak a biographical thing, but I'd like to speak something philosophical also, which was his standard. Find a place and sit down. There's a verse that he often recite. Vaishnavera Gunagan, Korile Jiva Ratran, Sunyachi Sadhu Guru Mukhe. The Sadhu Guru Mukhe, I've Sunyachi Sadhu Guru Mukhe, I've heard from Sadhu Gurus that Vaishnavera Gunagan, Korile Jiva Ratran, that if you speak about you glorify the Vaishnavas, then Korile Jiva Ratran, very easily you'll become delivered. It's a very important subject matter for us to hear about. I'd like to speak of today a little something on, I could share some personal reminiscences. Maybe Damadi might want to share some things, or Madhavananda or others afterwards, I don't know. I'd just like to speak about how to understand this personality and how it is that so many people couldn't. It was probably, I think, in 1991 and 1992 that I first heard about our Guru Maharaj. I was in Alachua, Florida, and there was a senior devotee there who was friends with me, and I used to go and meet with him and discuss philosophy. And one day I went to see him, and he said, "Oh, did you hear the news?" I said, "Well, what's that?" He said, "Govinda Maharaj is coming." I said, "Who's that?" He said, "You've never heard of Govinda Maharaj?" I said, "No." He said, "Oh, he's very controversial. And some people say he should be the Acharya after Prabhupada, and some people say he should be kicked out of ISKCON." I said, "Oh, that sounds very interesting. I'd like to see him." So Guru Maharaj came, and I attended his class, and I was very impressed by his exuberance and his knowledge of Shastra and his Mangalacharana and things. And then in the evening I went to a program with him. And he spoke something about bhakti. And at the end of the program, he asked for questions. And I had a question. I've been reading too many books probably. So I asked him a question something like this. I said, in the Sri Sampradaya, there's two schools, the Vadakalites and the Tankalites. And the Vadakalites, they're followers of Vedanta Deshika, and the Tankalites are followers of Madhavananda Muni. And the Vadakalites, they reject bhakti as a means that they accept prapati. This is a very technical kind of, something you might hear in the university kind of question. He just looked at me. and he could see through me. And Gour Maharaj really said, ha! Reject bhakti, nonsense. and I could see a little something of his heart. So although I was sitting there hearing his class in the morning, and in the evening, I couldn't really understand him. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 7th chapter, Krishna says, Manushanam sahasrishu kasyad yatata siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kasyamam diti tattata. That to find someone who's even endeavors for perfection is a very, very rare thing. And out of thousands and thousands of such persons, one who actually knows me is a very, very rare thing. So Gour Maharaj spoke a lot about this subject matter, quoting from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, actually our latest Bindu magazine, if you read Bindu, we're about to send it out today, a little later. We'll be speaking about the subject, the seer and the seen, drashta and drishta. And Gour Maharaj spoke quite a bit about this. Who can really see sadhu? And sometimes we have, there's a saying Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes in Sajjana Toshini, Amar Guru Jagat Guru. You may have heard, my Guru is very, very great. And that's the nature of young fanatical disciples. They want to promote their Guru, or what the vision they have of their Guru. Because even in this room, for those of us who are married, does your spouse really understand you all the way? So many times my wife says, you don't understand me. My husband, I tell her the same thing. And that's the person you're living with. You may not understand your mother. We don't understand anybody. And what to speak of Krishna's pure devotee. So I want to speak a little something about that. I'm going to read some things to you from our book, When Good Fortune Arises. It would be nice if I had a copy. Do you have one? Let me show you the devotees. So, Gour Maharaj gave a lecture, I think this was in 1991, in Lansing, Michigan. And it really, you can see something in his heart there. I'll read you a little something. He said, don't feel depressed or disappointed. Mahaprabhu is there, Krishna is there, Srila Prabhupada is there. Chant loudly and fill the atmosphere with transcendental sound vibration. You should have full, complete faith in the holy name, in Gopal, in Krishna, and Mahaprabhu. Don't feel desperate at any time, under any circumstances. There's no question of pessimism in Mahaprabhu's movement. There's all optimism. I've seen during my tour that now this pessimism is widespread amongst the devotees in America. Seeing that, I feel very, very sorry. I'm crying in my heart. What has happened? My Guru Maharaj came here first. He sowed the seed here. Now what's happened? They've lost faith. Such a sorry state of affairs. It made him very, very sad and very, very disturbed. And we see this throughout our movement today too. There's what I consider to be a crisis of faith. And we don't have much faith in leaders. Some persons have faith in our Guru Maharaj. Most everybody has faith in Srila Prabhupada. Even that sometimes is not so common, sadly, today. So I want to just start off with a little something about his life. He was born in a family of Kirtaniyas in a small village called Jagannathpur, which is in Jagatsinghpur district today. His mother was the daughter of Bauri Giri, who was a very famous Siddha Mahatma. And as he grew up as a small child, he grew up doing 24-hour Hare Krishna Kirtan with his uncles. And by the time he was 8 years old, he had read the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he was hearing songs of Narottam Das Thakur regularly. But he was a very, very different kind of child. And we made this book. Prabhupada Priya Seva Prabhu was taking me places, and we were interviewing different persons. Bauri Giri's daughter was Pata Devi, and his good mother. And we heard from Fakir Charan Nungo Prabhu, who was an old friend of our Guru Maharaj, that Guru Maharaj had told him that when he was a small baby, when he would start crying, Fakir Charan, when he was a small child and he'd start crying, his mother would learn if she gave him the Bhagavatam, he would stop crying. You can see that Bhagavatam today. It's in Giri in a special altar off to the side. It's a palm leaf Bhagavatam that they had handed down in their family for many generations. He grew up, their family were too poor to have oil lamps, and much to speak of electricity. He grew up sitting close to the fire and reading the Bhagavatam every night. And so he grew up like that. Prabhupada Priya Seva Prabhu and took me to meet Dobini Giri, who was his, Dobini Devi, she was the cousin, sister. She was taking care of Braj Bandhu Manik. That's what his name was at that time. His parents gave him the name Braj Bandhu, a friend of the Braj Basis. And she was his cousin. She was some years older, so she was taking care of him quite often. And she told us a story, which we often speak about, how when he was about 4 or 5 years old, Braj Bandhu, who later became Govinda Maharaj, he was a different kind of child. Most of the children would play, and they'd like some entertainment and things. But he didn't play with the other boys. He was just very serious. He liked to do kirtan. He liked to worship Gopal. And in the villages around Gadagiri, they grow a lot of moong dal. And he was, as a young boy, 4 or 5 years old, he was going out in the field. I remember as a young boy, we were growing up around wheat crops. And we used to pick the wheat early. It was very, very soft and very tasty. And so they were doing the same thing with young boys. They were picking those moong dal seeds. But he wasn't eating it. He was taking it in his little hands to bring to offer to Gopal. And so he brought it to the temple and he put it down in front of Radha Gopalji. And he went back to get some more. But when he came back, he was disturbed to find that the moong that he picked was gone. And so he went and picked some more, and again it was gone. And around that time, his grandfather came to that place, and Bauri Giri saw a very strange thing, that here was a little boy, Braj Bandhu, running around the temple, Gopal's temple, and shouting. But there was nobody there, like he's chasing someone. And then he saw something very amazing. He saw a shadow of someone enter into the temple. And he realized that Gopal was and hairs in his body stood on end, and some tears came in, and he realized Gopal was doing some pastimes with that little boy. So it's an interesting thing to me to watch. And the very first thing I heard about my Guru Maharaj is that some people say he's good, some people say that he's bad. and with all of us, people understand us and see us in different ways. I'll read you a little story from my godbrother, Rasikananda Prabhu, who was my old friend, Sanatan Das. He joined a few years after I did in Los Angeles. I was his bhakti leader at the time when he joined. He came in 1984, and he was initiated by the local Gour there at that time. And in 1986, when he fell down and left, he was really hurt. And he was told that you should take reinitiation again, but he didn't have faith in anyone. And then he was hearing it, later he heard some tape from Srila Prabhupada, who Prabhupada was saying, one must take shelter of a living Bhagavad. And he realized then, I have to take shelter of somebody. But he didn't find anyone. So he would go to the temple room every afternoon when no one was there. And he would go before Srila Prabhupada and he would pray to him. He said, now I realize I need to take shelter of a bona fide guru, but unless I get someone like you, I can't surrender. So please help me. So then, in June of 1992, he heard that Gour Maharaj was coming to San Francisco. And so he decided to drive up from Los Angeles to meet him. And so he arrived in the house where Gour Maharaj was speaking, and he couldn't find a place to sit. The only place there was to sit was on a sofa, which is on the same level as Gour Maharaj, just right opposite from him. So he didn't think anything, he just sat down. And but somehow the class didn't resonate with him, and he felt like he wasn't getting anything. And he was disappointed, he had some hope, maybe this might be my guru. And so then he decided to go back to Los Angeles. And then later, Gour Maharaj came again to Los Angeles, and at that time he was praying to Gauri Tai. He said, there's something wrong. Yusikananda was praying, there's something wrong in my heart. He said, I can't hear this person properly. He's praying to Gauri Tai, please remove whatever obstacles there in my heart so that I can hear him in a proper way. And so that morning he went to Gour Maharaj's class, and he came and sat down some distance away from him. And he was a little nervous. If you know Yusikananda, he's a very kind of shy person. And Gour Maharaj was speaking very, very heavily. And and after about Sanatan Das. So Sanatan Das, are you crying for Krishna? No, you're dry, not crying for Krishna, just crying for all kinds of material things. Hare Krishna. There's room in here if you want to come in. And there's also more chairs. You can bring a chair and anything. You won't hear very well out there, I don't think. And there's all these Prabhupada disciples there. This is during Prabhupada's time. And he said that there was one strange person who was sitting by himself on a suitcase over in front of the toilet, some old sadhu. And all the other devotees were like in the 20s, and this Nyasi, you're a brahmachari? No, we won't take anything from him. So Bhavan was very, so he had this hope, at least he can get some juice or something. And he said the whole way, Gour Maharaj didn't sleep the whole flight, he just sat up and chanted on his beads. So he wasn't understood very well. I spoke with some of the early devotees in Vrindavan. Gour Maharaj, it's a long story, he left home looking for Guru. And he told us once that I went from Cape Comorin to the Himalayas and went all over India searching for my Guru. And the last place that I hadn't gone was Vrindavan. And I was saving that for the last year because I thought definitely I'd be able to find my Guru in Vrindavan. And so he arrived in Mathura. He went to the Kesharji Gaudiya Mutt. And they thought he was a Mayapur. They kicked him out. He was really unhappy about the temple there. And then he said he went to many different places in Vrindavan, and they were nice Vaishnavas, but it wasn't his Guru. He was looking for three things that he grew up with his whole life. And the three things were Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Hare Krishna mantra, and Srimad Bhagavatam. And so one day he went to some place in the outskirts of Vrindavan at that time called Brahman Reti. And he saw something very strange he'd never seen before. He saw some Videshis, white-skinned Andres Westerners, wearing dhotis and saris of tilak. He's used to dhotis and saris of tilak, but he'd never seen Westerners like that. So he was kind of looking. And someone came to him and said, here's a magazine, Back to Godhead. And they gave him a BTG magazine. He opened it up, and he saw a picture of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he turned the page, and there's a Hare Krishna mantra. And he flipped to the back of the magazine and there's Srimad Bhagavatam. And he saw a picture of Srila Prabhupada. So he asked him, can I meet your guru? Yes, yes. So he told us that Brahmananda Prabhu was Prabhupada's secretary servant at that time. And Brahmananda went into Prabhupada and said, some sadhu is here to see you. Prabhupada said, yes, bring him in. And the first thing that Prabhupada, when Guru Maharaj came in off the basis, the first thing Prabhupada asked him, he said, so, have you taken sannyas? He said, no. And Prabhupada said, I'll give you sannyas. That was his, Prabhupada's opening comments to him. Prabhupada could appreciate it. And Guru Maharaj told us that, he said, I can understand this is my guru because he knows my heart. But the devotees at that time, Prabhupada asked Guru Maharaj, what can you do? So I was a school teacher. Prabhupada said, oh, can you translate into Hindi? Yes, I can do. And so Prabhupada gave him a small book and asked him to translate a page or two, which he did, and brought it back to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was very pleased with the quality of the translation. So Prabhupada told him, you go to the temple president and tell him he should give you a room to stay and you would do the service. The temple president looked at him because he just had a small gumption and his hair was matted. I think at that time he had some beard. And he thought this person, some sadhu, Vrindavan sadhu, no, he wouldn't let him have a place to stay. He was staying, we stayed there before also. And the Nitai Gour Radha Shyam ashram right behind the Krishna Bhavan, which was there at that time. And there was some Ariya devotees there. And Guru Maharaj was going every morning to Mangalarti. And a few days went by and Prabhupada found out that they'd not given him room and chastised him and told him to give him a place to stay. And some of the devotees remember from that time that they were engaging him in different services. He was translating, but he was also sometimes doing other things. And once they asked him to cook, and so he made kitchen for the devotees. And when he made that kitchen, the devotees were commenting, oh my God, this is the most amazing prasadam. Who cooked this? They said, oh, that Mayavadi. They thought he was a Mayavadi. And the Mayavadi sadhu, he cooked that. So, from the day that he joined, for me, I can feel that a little bit. He wasn't really understood very much. And Bhakti Chandra Maharaj speaks about this sometimes too. There was kind of an American mafia in his kind of that time. And some of the leaders, mostly were from the United States, and kind of controlling things in their particular way. And for the devotees, the Indian body devotees like Lokanath Maharaj and Bhakti Chandra Maharaj and some others, Subhadra Maharaj, it was a little hard for them. Madhavananda Maharaj remembers, actually Madhavananda Maharaj was here some years ago. I invited him for a program for Guru Maharaj's Tirtha. He remembers that Prabhupada told our Guru Maharaj, you go to Bhubaneswar and you start a temple there. And so he went there with the devotees, but there was nothing there. You remember the group of devotees headed by Bhagavat Prabhu at the time, he was the Maharaj. And it was very, very austere. The prasadam was very, very simple. We were sleeping on the ground. There was no place to stay or anything. And that's Shami Heat, the Krishna Queen, if you want to send me a message. And so the devotees, they decided this is not good. The Maharaj decided we can't stay here. But Guru Maharaj said, no, Prabhupada told me, when Guru Maharaj told me I should stay here. He said, no, you can't stay here. She's asking for the location from Prabhupada told me to stay here. And Bhagavan Maharaj said, look, you're just a brahmachari. He was a brahmachari. You're just a brahmachari, he said, so you can't stay here on your own. Brahmacharis can't do it alone. You have to come with us. And Guru Maharaj was unhappy. So when he went to see Prabhupada, in front of the devotees, he asked Prabhupada, will you give me sannyas? And Prabhupada spoke in a rather cryptic way. He said, you know that sannyas, you know what sannyas means? It means no material desires. Then I said, yes, I understand. And Prabhupada said, very good. And the devotees were confused. Did he agree to give him sannyas? Did he not agree? And then later they heard that Prabhupada was going to give him sannyas. This was about 6 months after he joined. Prabhupada gave him first initiation. And then very quickly after here in Mayapur, gave him second. And then sannyas at the Krishna Bhavan when they were opening. And when some of the senior devotees heard that Prabhupada was giving sannyas, they were a little shocked because at that time there was a moratorium on sannyas. Prabhupada wasn't allowing anyone to take sannyas because a lot of the sannyasis had fallen down. So they were speaking to Prabhupada. They said, Prabhupada, how can he take sannyas? He's a new man. And Prabhupada became annoyed with him. He said, he's a devotee from birth. You're a new man. Prabhupada told him like that. So it was something little difficult for him. Devotees couldn't really understand him. They couldn't understand his accent very often. And his whole mood and presentation was very different from what they were used to with Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada would give class sometimes for 15, 20 minutes on a regular basis. Maybe 30 minutes was a long class. Bhavan Maharaj told me once he was in Detroit when Prabhupada was giving class, and he said that every single devotee in the class fell asleep. And Prabhupada turned to his servant and said, actually, Bhagavatam classes are very advanced devotees. So maybe he kept it very short because in those days the devotees weren't sleeping very much. They were doing so much service and they were falling asleep quite often. But a Guru Maharaj would speak at least for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. And devotees couldn't understand that. It was something completely different. He would sit down and he would give a glorification to Bhagavatam before he began. And the glorification would take 20 or 30 minutes. And he would finish and the devotees would think, now the class is over. And he was just starting the class. That was just the beginning of it. They were a little difficult for him. I remember in 1994, Guru Maharaj, when I came to Bhubaneswar, Guru Maharaj told me he wanted me to come and do some deity installation. It was my first service to install the deities of Radha Gopinath. He was installing, I was just a pujari. And my regular service, he instructed that I was to take care of Lord Jagannath. And one night I was getting ready to go, take a bath and go to do my service with Jagannath. And somebody came in and said, Guru Maharaj wants to see you. I said, well, I have to go on the altar. He said, no, Guru Maharaj says he wants to see you right now. I said, I have to pujari. Somebody else is doing that. Okay. So I went to see Guru Maharaj, and Guru Maharaj said, so I want you to stay here with me and do my service. And it was a real surprise. So I traveled with Guru Maharaj for a month and a half or something in Europe. That was the first time I'm from the United States. It was the first time I'd ever been in Europe before. That's when I first met Anupam and Lhasa. And Damani I knew before. Actually, before I met Guru Maharaj, I knew I'm not sure. And Hare Krishna, come in. So it's the first time I'd ever been to Europe. I didn't know anybody. If you go to a strange place, you're coming from a strange country, you come here, the only person you can know is him. So you come very close together. And it's the only person that you know if you're really with somebody. So we were traveling together in Europe and in Belgium and England and Spain, France. And I didn't know very many devotees, one or two, mostly I didn't know any of them. The only person I knew was Guru Maharaj. And somehow he was very affectionate, very, very friendly with me. And I would sleep on the floor next to his bed, sometimes under his bed. And when he would wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes he'd go to the toilet, I'd jump up and because he had some help to walk, I'd walk with him to the toilet. And when he would wake up in the morning, he would sleep about 3 hours a night, sometimes less. And I was also sleeping like that because I had to be with him, and I wasn't used to that. So for a month and a half we lived with him. When he would get up to go to the toilet, I would jump up and go in and put some toothpaste on his toothbrush and fix things up for him. And then he would be using the toilet, and while he was using the toilet, I would sit up against the door with my back on the bathroom door and sleep for 10 minutes or half an hour, whatever it would be, and then he would open the door. So I felt close to him like I've never felt close to anybody in my life before. I could reveal my mind and things. And there's a reason I'm building up to this. So when we went back to India, we flew from Heathrow Airport to Delhi. And it's a long flight, I don't know, 6 hours or 8 hours or something. And on the way, Guru Maharaj is sitting next to me, And he wasn't chanting japa. He already had his japa finished that day. He wasn't watching a movie. He wasn't reading a magazine. He wasn't talking. He wasn't sleeping. His eyes were open. And he was just like he was in a trance or something. He was just looking ahead of him to see something. And all of a sudden I had the strangest feeling in my life. I often tell this story, some of you have heard it, they asked me about my understanding of Gour. I had the strangest, here's this person I feel the closest to in my life, but I have no idea what he's thinking, what he's doing. And I realized I might as well be a million miles away from him, although he's sitting right next to me. So I wanted to mention that because it's not such an easy thing to understand sadhu. And sometimes, as we mentioned in the beginning, disciples have an attitude, I'm a guru, Jagat Guru. They think, I understand Gurudev, I know Gurudev. One of our godbrothers told Gundachuda's sister once, she was, inspired to take initiation from Bhakti Sridhar Maharaj after Guru Maharaj had left. And Guru Maharaj liked Bhakti Sridhar Maharaj. She told me once in France, on the same trip, privately, just out of the blue, Guru Maharaj said, he is a sadhu. He is my dear friend, said about Bhakti Sridhar. So this sister Gundachuda finally had some faith, and one of our godbrothers told her, he's not a sadhu. Believe me, Mataji, I've seen sadhu. I know sadhu. And that really struck me very deeply, hearing that. That sometimes we have that attitude that I know Gurudev. And there's a difference between being anukor and anusar, between imitating someone and following. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, in the first Vilas, Sanatana Swami quotes a verse, Advaitam Chant Parityaga, that the disciple, Parityaga, should give up thinking that he's non-different from Gurudev. Rather, we should always think, I don't know who this person is. I see some aspect of this person. But even all of us, your mother, Krishna Bhavan, he knows his mother. He's a mamachari, he's closer to his mother, I know. But your mother knows your father in a very different kind of way. That was her boyfriend at one time. She has friends from school. She has teachers. She has so many different persons with different relationships who know her in different ways. And what to speak of Krishna sadhu. So it's a very important principle that we give up this attitude, Advaitam Chapariti, thinking that I'm not different from Guru, or thinking that I can see Guru, I know who's sadhu. Guru Maharaj told us that when he was in Bhubaneswar, when Prabhupada came there in 1977, they got for Srila Prabhupada, they booked a room for him. Gardner Muni Prabhu booked a room for him in the state guest house, probably in one of the nicest places at that time in Bhubaneswar. But Srila Prabhupada refused. He said, no, I want to stay in the mud hut that my child, Govind, made for me. And so he stayed in that mud hut there for 17 days. And during that time, there was no toilet. Prabhupada was going to the fields to do his business. There was no proper shower. The devotees took some bamboo things and made a screen. And the well was there. So Prabhupada was taking baths in that. And Srila Prabhupada liked it very much. And Guru Maharaj told us some stories about that time. He said that Srila Prabhupada was calling him into his quarters and giving him different instructions. And when the devotees asked him, was it recorded? He said, no. Prabhupada didn't allow a tape recorder. He said, I recorded it with my heart. And he said, Prabhupada told me many private things which I won't share with you. Some very private things. But a few of them he mentioned to us. Once he said he was sitting with Srila Prabhupada in Prabhupada's hut, and Prabhupada gestured to the devotees outside, the American Mafia. Many senior devotees who were there. And Prabhupada turned to him and he said, they all have problems, and they can't stay. But I want you to stay. And then he told Guru Maharaj, he said, you tolerate, cooperate. Very difficult for him to understand. It's difficult for some devotees to understand Bhakti Charamaj or Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. They're different kind of persons. It's difficult for anyone to understand a devotee. So Guru Maharaj told him, he said, they'll help you, but you stay here. The first time he left India, he went to Italy. I saw some video of that. It really broke my heart. At that time it was the Zonalacharya days, and they were having Guru Puja for the local Zonalacharya. And they gave Guru Maharaj a nice seat, and he was sitting there, and all the devotees turned their backs to him. I mean, they're practically stepping on him almost. They just had their backs to him while they were worshiping their local guru. He wasn't appreciated, wasn't understood very much. I remember in 1994, maybe 93, when Guru Maharaj was traveling in America, I traveled with him. And we flew into Orlando Airport because Guru Maharaj was driving to Alachua. And I had to go check out, get the bags. And so I left the devotee, left Guru Maharaj with the devotees, and left him, with an attendant. It was just Guru Maharaj and myself in the flight. And when I came back, I was very shocked to see, it's a busy airport, and that attendant had taken Guru Maharaj, he was in a wheelchair, because he couldn't walk so well on his own, and he pushed him facing the wall. It's a very rude thing. And in retrospect, I don't know if that was the attendant or if that was Guru Maharaj. Maybe he just didn't want to see people in the airport. He wasn't very much impressed with it. Later he wanted to use the toilet. So I took him to the bathroom and did his business. And he came out to wash his hands. And he looked down at the sink, and it has an electronic sensor. And at that time, there was no such thing in India. And he was looking at it and looked at me. And then I realized he didn't, and I put my hand in front of the thing, and then magically, so to speak, the water started coming up. And I said, "Achha." Very special place. But this is one of the themes that he spoke about a lot. Even in 1985, when Guru Maharaj went to France, he went to the home of Hari Vilas Prabhu, Prabhupada's disciple. Srila Prabhupada instructed Hari Vilas Prabhu that he should help to build the Bhubaneswara temple. He should help collect money for it. And so he was practically the only person doing that. And so when Guru Maharaj went to France, it's natural I have to go visit my godbrother, Hari Vilas Prabhu, who was very, very sweet and appreciated him so much. They went to Hari Vilas Prabhu's home, and the devotees were very disturbed at that time, because the Zonalacharya of that particular place, sometimes they used to call him the Sun King. He's a very big personality. And the devotees had lost some faith in him. And actually, Guru Maharaj didn't know, but Hari Vilas Prabhu was on the blacklist, and that person had been ostracized and kicked away from the temple. Guru Maharaj didn't know that. He invited him to his home, so he just went. And a group of devotees came there, and he started telling them a story about the blue jackal, and how once there was a jackal. There's a video of this too. It's very beautiful. And Guru Maharaj is very, very thin in those days. How this jackal once fell into some blue dye of washing, and the jackal became blue. And then he went to the forest, and all the animals were looking at him. I'd never seen an animal like this before. And so he, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am the king of all the animals." And so they said, "Yes, he's very strange looking, so he must be the king." And so they made him the jackal king, and he sat on the throne. And then one evening, the moon came up, and the jackal started howling. We're here in Mayapur also. And the king, the jackal, he also started howling also. And so then everybody understood that he's just a jackal. Beat him, he's a nonsense rascal. And so Guru Maharaj told him, he said, "We know these things, so why should we be disturbed? Don't be disturbed." He said, "The time will come. Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will reveal everything. Have patience." And so then some devotee asked a question, he said, Maharaj, how can we see, we see that envy can be very subtle, so how should we, what is our hope? And Maharaj replied, he said, we should have full faith in Guru Sadhu Shastra, and we must do our service. Some disturbance may come, and will come. It's the nature of this material world. It's a very, very horrible place. But one should have firm determination and patience. We should not deviate in any circumstance. Always pray to Guru and Lord Chaitanya, they'll help you. We are very weak, but Chaitanya Guru is in our heart. He will give inspiration. For a sincere soul who's very eager to have this, Krishna makes arrangements. He knows this soul wants this thing, so he makes arrangements for it to happen. Is there anything impossible for Krishna? It's impossible for us, but nothing is impossible for Krishna. Our business is to always pray to Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Guru Maharaj, help me, and you'll get help. Have full faith in this. Don't be desperate. We should be very eager to get this mercy and have association with pure devotees who are more advanced than ourselves. Then you'll get benefit. Sadhu Sangha means you'll associate with a person who's more advanced than yourself. Then you'll benefit. Otherwise, no benefit. It may seem impossible to get such association. Still, nothing is impossible for Krishna. Krishna will make arrangement. Vani instructions are there. When nothing is available, we should associate with instructions in books. And with our sincere prayers, we'll reach Krishna. The day will come when you'll meet such a person. It's impossible for us, but it's not impossible for Krishna. But we should always be praying, Krishna, please help me. Chanting the holy name means the soul is crying, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. O Krishna, Krishna Shakti Radharani, please engage me in service. I'm fallen. So he gave that class. He went back to the big temple, and the local leader there, the local Zonalacharya, heard that he'd gone to Hari Vilas Prabhu's home. And he called for Guru Maharaj. In front of a group of his disciples, that Zonalacharya started shouting at Guru Maharaj and chastising him. How dare you go to Hari Vilas Prabhu's? Who told you you can do that? And then he told Guru Maharaj, get out. Out. Go away. Now this is the first time he'd ever been outside of India. He spoke English quite well, but his accent was a little thick. And in France, especially at that time, in 1985, back when nobody speaks English, and they do, they won't speak it to you. They only speak French. He had nowhere to go, no money or anything. And I heard this story from the devotees with him. Guru Maharaj just laughed. Very good. Very good Krishna arrangement. I don't know what any of us would. At that time there was one new bhakta there, his name was Patrick. And he felt something in his heart. And he made some arrangement for if we have a train ticket to go to England. That devotee later became Pushkarakshi Prabhu. And God bless him. So many times he spoke about this subject. The devotees don't have faith. Or they have faith, a very weak faith, Komala Sharma. He's what he used to call Prachana Ridvika, or covered Ridvik philosophy. And devotees would say that I don't know Krishna, but I know Srila Prabhupada. So I'll connect you with Srila Prabhupada. Once we said that to Guru Maharaj, we said this is what they say, and Guru Maharaj said, Hare Baba, where is Prabhupada? Prabhupada's with Krishna. If you know Prabhupada, it means you know Krishna. You can't separate the two. And we saw so many devotees have lost faith in that way, and it really hurt his heart. He told me personally, he said we should work to help uphold the prestige of Srila Prabhupada's mission. In New York City, I think you were there in 1993, and Guru Maharaj went there. That picture of the next one things Adi Dev took, Guru Maharaj sitting on the Vyasa-san. Was taken in Prabhupada's quarters in Brooklyn Temple at that time. At one point I was alone in the room with Guru Maharaj. Sachinanda Prabhu was Guru Maharaj's servant who'd gone to the bathroom. And I don't know if I just asked for initiation or just taken initiation, one or the other. And anyway, Guru Maharaj started speaking to me in a very personal way. And later I could understand that he was giving some special mercy, which Guru Maharaj would do, like we were hearing about the Sikhananda Prabhu. When someone's first coming to him, he would give them some special attention, special instructions. And he told me, so there's three things that are very important to me. So the first is, I feel very pain when I see the preachers falling down and going away. I want to preach to the preachers. And the second thing is, I feel great pain in my heart when I hear people sometimes saying that Prabhupada only gave ABC. And if you want to understand something more, you have to go to the Gaudiya Math or some Babaji's. And he said, I want to show that Srila Prabhupada gave everything in his books. I want to make them known. And the third thing is, he said, I want to show that everything is in Prabhupada's society, everything is in ISKCON. And devotees don't have to go somewhere else. Once the devotees asked Guru Maharaj a question that how do we, sometimes our authorities, they demand that we treat them like a guru. The temple president or the GBC, they say, we're also guru. And Guru Maharaj said, no, you can't force faith. He said, but we should be respectful. This person's a senior devotee. This person's a manager, so I offer my pranams to him. But who I accept as my guru, that's my personal choice. And it has to be someone that I have faith in. Guru Maharaj inspired me personally so much in this way. I came in touch with Srila Prabhupada's books in 1971 or 72. And I met the devotees in 78, I moved in the temple in 82. And was initiated by the local Saranagati, and he had some difficulties. And like many devotees, like many of our godbrothers, I had a crisis of faith. And I didn't really have much faith in him. I had faith in Srila Prabhupada's teachings, but not so much in the leaders and things. And Guru Maharaj helped us so much. And I remember one thing about him which really, really struck me. I was used to devotees speaking about Srila Prabhupada. In Los Angeles, we used to have Prabhupada festivals, and everybody would tell all the stories about Prabhupada, and practically every class was Prabhupada Katha. But when I came to see Guru Maharaj, he very rarely spoke about Srila Prabhupada. He quoted Shastra. And on Prabhupada's appearance or disappearance days, or sometimes privately with the devotees, he would speak something about his exchanges with Srila Prabhupada, which were quite a few. And he had, I don't know, there was a dozen or so letters that they exchanged between them. He had a good number of exchanges with Srila Prabhupada, but he didn't speak much about that. Later I found this verse from Sumalayana Tantra, which is quoted also in Hari Bhakti Vilas, where Sanatana Swami Tantra says, the Gopaya Guru Atmana. You should hide your guru. Don't advertise your guru. Because again, who am I and who is this person? So I'd like to read a little something again from a lecture Guru Maharaj gave. Let's see, this is from Lansing, Michigan, the same lecture we were speaking about before. He says that some devotees, they say, oh, we've been cheated so many times, so now we won't put faith in anyone. There's no sadhus. We don't see any sadhu. Guru Maharaj asked, can you see a sadhu? Do you have vision to see a sadhu? How can you see a sadhu? And even amongst disciples, someone being initiated by Guru Maharaj. But I was sleeping under his bed. I was giving him a massage every night. I was with him 20 hours a day, probably, minus some time in the bathroom. For a month and a half, I have no clue. And unless we come to that realization, how can we really approach sadhu? If we approach sadhu that, oh Maharaj, you're very fortunate, if you can get someone like me as a disciple, I have lots of money, I'll give you donations, I'm very learned. I know 4 verses from Bhagavad Gita. Almost incompetent to be fortunate to have a disciple like me. That's not how we approach Guru. When I asked my Guru Maharaj for initiation, I told him, I said, Maharaj, I'm just an animal. What if I could be your animal? And he please accept me. And you, like an animal, sometimes you have to beat it. And Guru Maharaj did sometimes with us. I got that mercy a few times. He would sometimes strike us with it. But Guru Maharaj, he said, you're not prepared to admit that you're blind. And unless we admit that we're blind, that we can't see, that I don't know who's sadhu, unless we cry out to Krishna like that, then how are we going to see? Huh? And so many different persons saw him in different ways, or didn't see him, didn't understand him. As I was mentioning a few of you came a little later, this friend of mine in Alachua told me that Govind Maharaj is coming. He's very controversial. Some say he's the Acharya after Prabhupada. Some say he should be kicked out of ISKCON. Oh. I remember also one devotee in Gour came to me once and he said, Madhavananda, what do you think? Some devotees say that Govind Maharaj is the Acharya after Prabhupada. And I said, well, that sounds really nice. I like that idea. Why not? I said, but am I supposed to vote? What is the value of my opinion about that? Because when we, Acharya simply means someone who teaches by their example in a general way. And you may have a Mridanga teacher, that is your Acharya. With to speak of who your guru is, that's your Acharya. But in a broad sense, we often use that term in ISKCON, Gaudiya to mean a very powerful person who's recognized by the whole society and everybody turns to. And I told him, I said, I like that idea, sure, that sounds really good, but the reality is no. Maybe in the future, maybe everybody will recognize him like that. But then I said, but for me, there's no question that he's my guru, he's my Acharya. It's only neophyte devotees who have this need, Amar Guru, Jagat Guru, that everybody should accept him in the same way that I do. And oftentimes those persons, their Shraddha is Komala Shraddha. It's weak Shraddha. And to make up for their weak faith, they want to insist that everybody else should also respect their Guru. But personally, this is just my perspective, coming from a conditioned soul, and that's the whole subject of our talk today. My humble perspective is that not everybody appreciates him in the same way. And even amongst God brothers, Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu, our senior God brother, passed away 6 months ago, a year ago. To see him in a certain way. He was an older disciple of Satchidananda Prabhu, would see him in a certain way, but I may see him in a very different way. You have to go into that. Make it the boys are doing good? So, we want to see you guys then. Thank you for coming. Hare Krishna. Different devotees will see in different ways, but we can't insist that everybody has the same vision that I have. The only neophyte devotees do that. And for myself, Guru Maharaj requested and instructed me to help to edit his lectures and put them in magazines, and then like Krishna Chaitanya magazine. Later I also started to make some books, which were like Maternity from Bhavan and some others. And my personal mood always was I always thought of it like someone sitting on the bank of the Ganga waiting for the sun to rise. And then you come and stand right in front of them, in between them and the sun, and you start jumping up and down and saying, the sun is so wonderful, the sun is so brilliant, the sun is so great. In front of the person says, would you mind just getting out of the way so I can see the sun? And that was my personal feeling when we made Good Fortune Arises, was to write about a principle. The principle of good fortune arises. A principle which is eternal, a principle which is always there. Rama said that when you do Atma Kandana, when you cry in the heart for Krishna, then Krishna sends sadhu. And it's not that only worked during the time of Srila Prabhupada, or it only worked during the time of our Guru Maharaj, or Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, or Bhakti Sudamani, but it's an eternal principle. Krishna's always there, and there's always hope. Everything's always positive. We just have to cry in the heart. And we have to have proper faith. If we don't have that faith, what can we have? So many devotees couldn't understand this. I remember in 1994, I was a Sikhananda devotee in America, and we were a little disappointed that not so many devotees could appreciate Guru Maharaj. So we had an idea, hey, we'll advertise, we'll make posters, and we'll advertise like seminars and retreats. That was just a new thing in this time. In 1994, nobody was hardly doing that at that time. So we'll advertise different subjects, and we'll tell people ahead of time, and then it'll attract more people. But we got to get Guru Maharaj on board. We have to get his approval with this. So this is before email. So we sent him a fax. And to make it easy for him, we made a list of certain topics that we really liked, like Radharani and the Bhagavatam, and the esoteric significance of Jagannath Puri, and the position of Jagannath, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Jagannath, and a list of different subjects that he liked. And Guru Maharaj sent us back a fax that had one sentence. Actually, a couple of sentences. The main sentence, he said, I only speak on one topic. Krishna praying. That was Guru Maharaj's subject. And he said, in any way, I speak according to the audience in each place, so there's no need for this. And so I found, just like on Facebook, we make a Bindu magazine, and we put some brand new translations in it from the Adi Purana, some amazing stories and shlokas and so many things. And I shared it. We have maybe 10,000 readers. And I put it on Facebook, and we get like 4 people who click like on it. But if I post something, a picture of Krishna Kun made some pizza, and we'll get 200 likes for the pizza. And I learned something from all that our Guru Maharaj was speaking something for a certain crowd of people. He said that I only speak on one topic, which is Krishna praying. But most people would rather hear about pizza, honestly, than they would Krishna praying. It's just a sad fact. But that's the situation in the world today. So we shouldn't try to see sadhu just on the basis of vox populi. How many people are going, how many people are impressed by him. But rather we should try to see, as Srila Prabhupada says, Shrutekshita pata. We see with our ears. We cry in the heart for Krishna. Krishna will send such a person. But if we don't have faith in Krishna, sometimes we tell people, actually I was invited to help, so one time I had many GBCDs. They asked me to come and be part of a group working out the disciples course. It didn't work out the way I was happy with, but that's another subject. But I was pushing one thing very strongly, that we should teach the students that they should cry to Krishna. And Krishna will send them Guru, because this is what we heard over and over and over again from our Brahmanas. It was my personal experience. How I came to them. Another story. It's a story of Sikhananda Prabhu, which I just told you earlier. The story of so many devotees. When he cried, when Krishna reveals such a person. But they said, no, this is not practical. We need something practical. So their idea was, you should be, there's a list to tick off. Number 1, in the movement for at least 1 year. Number 2, 16 rounds. And 4 regulated principles. Number 4, a recommendation from the temple president. And like this, the system. And okay, and some people like that. Some people appreciate it. Some people are looking for a list. I found that. And some people, they go and tell them you should cry to Krishna. They say, Prabhu, I need something practical. That's not practical. What does that mean? That means they don't really have faith. Or their faith is commercial. They have some faith in the holy name and that, but their faith is based on Lokik Shraddha. Lokik Shraddha means what the common devotees say. 100 people say, this Maharaj is very great, so he must be very great. So everybody follows along with him. We have to develop faith, and that faith begins with Krishna. When we have faith in Krishna, that Krishna will send Messiah. Then we can cry. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he once said in one article, he said, unless one develops faith, one can see neither a pure devotee nor the Supreme Lord. Unless you have faith, you can't see Krishna, you won't see Krishna's presence. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said in another article, you'll become a self-appointed reformer. You'll see, oh, I have to change things, I have to do something because Krishna's not there. My godbrother, Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu, our godbrother, is very dear to my heart. He was a temple president for many years in Govind. Maharaj grew up with the deities, and Shishi Radha Gopalji, and grew up there. And we would go there, and sometimes there was, I remember one person was kind of standing, looking at the wall, and having a conversation with the wall. Nobody was there. Okay? And there was some kind of funny people there sometimes in the ashram like that. And devotees would go to him, and they would complain, Maharaj, Chaitanya Chandra, this is not good, this person's crazy, this is... And he had the most interesting system of management, which he learned from Govind. He said, Gopal's in charge. Gopal will take care. And it always worked. Sometimes maybe a little longer than we like. The person will stay there for some time. But sooner or later, they always eventually end up leaving, or their heart will change. Gopal was in charge. And that is the mood that a Guru Maharaj had. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Swami, trying to pick apart this one sentence, he said, unless one develops faith, one can see neither a pure devotee nor the Supreme Lord. And because you don't see the pure devotee and you don't see the Lord, then you say, well, somebody's got to give initiation. I'm not qualified, but there's nobody here to do it. Even though I'm not qualified, I've got to do it. What can be done? Or we think I have to become a reformer. I have to go and chastise people. I have to expose them, this or that. Because we don't have faith that Krishna is there. Now, of course, if Guru and Krishna instructs someone to do that, that's another matter. The Guru instructs someone to initiate disciples. But there's no loss. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that the symptom of someone who's actually hearing the holy name is that they give up the attitude of being a reformer to anyone else. Because they see that everybody's being taken care of. That's the symptom. They're actually hearing the holy name. The Krishna's person and present. So I'm still in this one sentence. Unless one develops faith, one can not see neither a pure devotee nor the Supreme Lord, and will simply indulge, and he gives you three choices. If you don't have faith, you can't see a pure devotee, you can't see the Lord, and you're going to indulge in one of three different activities, one or more. Envious, violent, or blasphemous activities. You'll become envious because you don't see any pure devotee. You don't have faith that a pure devotee can be there. And that happened even with our Guru Maharaj too. There was some persons who wanted to ban him from coming to countries. You're not allowed to come here, you're not allowed to give initiation. The government doesn't care. But those temple leaders, and he was banned from going to a few different places like that. So some will act in an envious way because they don't have faith. They don't have faith in Krishna, they don't have faith in sadhu. Or they may do something violent. Someone may actually try to attack the sadhu. Or blasphemous activities. They'll criticize the sadhu. And then our whole society is in trouble. It's a very, very difficult situation. So for me, personally, I'm a very, very small person. And people ask me, what's your realization about your Guru Maharaj? And I tell them that story that I was with him for a month and a half, sleeping under his bed, 24 hours a day with him, and then coming back on the plane, sitting next to me, and I realized I don't know him at all. And for me, that was the most special realization that I got. Because it's real, that's my situation. So, for me, I often give the most important instruction from our Guru Maharaj is, I'm not the seer, but I should act in a way to be seen, and I should do my service. Sometimes we were talking about this yesterday, the day before. Sometimes it's a little discouraging. We see so many things going on in society, big crowds and lots of money, and sometimes it's scandals and this and that. And then I hear my Guru Maharaj's voice, you just do your service. Don't worry about all these other people. You do what you've been given. And if we do that, and we have faith that my Gurudev gave me this. In 1993, I was initiated in Islam in 1991, something like that. My Guru at that time had problems and left. And so, actually, it was much earlier than that. I went for 6 or 7 years without anybody. And finally, I had some realization, I need a Guru, but I need someone like Srila Prabhupada. And around that time, I was going to Prabhupada's quarters, and I was crying, by myself, honestly, chanting. And Prabhupada, I prayed, please, I need someone. I know I need a Guru, but I need someone like you. Can you imagine that everybody in our society was praying like that? Instead of praying, please Krishna, may I become the temple president? May I become a GDC? May I have disciples in my honor? Instead of praying directly or indirectly like that, if everybody was crying, please give me association with Swami. So I had some faith like that. And around that time, one day in Los Angeles, I went to visit a Prabhupada disciple, a very, very senior Prabhupada, very senior Prabhupada disciple. He somehow was affectionate to me. And when I went to see him, he was there with 2 of his godbrothers. All 3 of them had been sannyasis and were no longer. And they're very, very intense people, these particular 3. And somehow they heard that I was looking for Guru. And so I went in there, and out of affection for me, they started preaching to me that my name was Nityananda Das at that time. I said, Nityananda, you don't want, these gurus are all bogus, you don't want to do. And they were preaching this really good thing to me. And they went on for like an hour. And I didn't know what to say. I'm just a very small person. These are very, very senior devotees. And so I was just quiet. And finally, after an hour, one of them said, so what do you think? And then I had to look really deep in my heart because I was afraid. I had this faith that Krishna and Prabhupada will send me Guru. I have this faith. But now they're going to try to break my faith. This faith is the only thing that I have. So I had to look really deep to speak to him. I said, I appreciate your affection for me. And I don't want to go through what I went through before. When my Guru had problems and went away, it broke my heart. I said, but for 7 years, I've been taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada, and I'm not satisfied. They were real shocked. I said, I want what you have. And I started singling them out and saying, I know Srila Prabhupada sent you to XYZ country and told you to preach, and Prabhupada Madhavananda, Prabhupada sent you there, and Prabhupada trained you, Prabhupada gave you personal instructions, Prabhupada chastised you, Prabhupada loved you, and I want that. And I'm not going to be satisfied with anything less. If it comes in a dream, that's great. But I want a personal instruction that I can give my life to. And I'm not going to be satisfied with anything less. And then they all became quiet. And finally one of them said, you're very sincere, Prabhu. He said, I'm sure Krishna will fulfill your desire. And Krishna did. It wasn't long after that my old friend Sanatan, who joined a few years after I did, came back to LA in India. I said, hey, Sanatan. He said, oh, my name's changed now. How about you? Sikananda. You got initiated. And he says, listen to this. And he gave me a cassette tape of English. And I listen and I feel this is my Guru. And when Guru Maharaj came and I traveled with him like that. So this is our principle. And I feel so strong about this as an individual. When someone wants to come to me and tell me that I have to have faith in XYZ person for whatever reason, because they're senior devotee, they're a Prabhupada disciple, or they're a GBC, or they're your temple president, so they're like your guru. I'm sorry, but I feel like that's rape. You're trying to spiritually rape me, or force me in a very basic way, because who I put my faith in is my business. And even amongst God brothers and God sisters, we may have different things. Some devotees are attracted by one sadhu, maybe later as a Siksha Guru or association. Someone else sees someone else. In the same way that one boy likes a particular girl, another boy likes another girl. It's a question of individuality. But that individuality and that freedom of expression, that freedom of choice, is the most inherent quality of the jiva. And it's the inherent basic fundamental principle of bhakti. If we try to force someone, you must like this person, this person's the acharya. We took a vote. And 25 people said, he's the acharya, so everybody has to accept the thing. That's something out of force. And what's the value of that? Excuse me. But if someone, by their behavior, their achar, people develop faith in them, they become acharya. That's a natural thing. That's bhakti. As opposed to what Prabhupada sometimes would call churchianity. The big institution, or Srila Prabhupada quoted one English poet once, that when Hanuman went to Sri Lanka, Cape Comorin, and all the monkeys were talking, who can jump from Cape Comorin to Lanka? So this poet, English poet, described that scene at that time. And Prabhupada used to quote this: big monkey, big belly, sail on jumping, melancholy. In other words, there's so many big monkeys with big bellies. But sail on jumping. When Hanuman jumped, he actually did it. He jumped to Lanka, sail on. Melancholy. Everybody became very unhappy. So this is such an important thing. And this is something that I see as a gift of our Guru Maharaj, a service that he wanted to do for Srila Prabhupada. Not just to get people to do 16 of these and 4 of those and become a member and this and that, but to give them hope, to give them faith, and to show devotees that we're individuals and we have to cry in our heart and have faith, strong faith. Krishna will answer our prayers. He will send us something. And there's nothing wrong, there's no problem in this time. There's one conversation with Guru Maharaj. Maybe I could look it up if someone likes in a minute. Where somebody said, Maharaj is word for word at this point, said, how do we understand there's so many problems in Islam? And Guru Maharaj chastised and said, hey Baba, there's no problems. You have problems. And therefore you see problems, but there's no problems. and the devotee, the devotee said, but we see that there's so many. Perfect. This is the same thing that used to be the little black balls. I said, but we see there's so many different opinions. And devotees said, where's Prabhupada? And Guru Maharaj said, Prabhupada is always present. But you don't see him because you're a conditioned soul. So I've taken so much faith and inspiration from that. And it doesn't mean that I don't see any problems. I wish I was on that platform. I see problems and I sometimes become annoyed by them. But I try to control myself. I try to see what is the real solution. And for me, the only solution is Bhakti Srila Prabhupada here in Mayapur. once he showed up at a GBC meeting unannounced. And Prabhupada came in, everybody offered obeisances, and Prabhupada spoke to him and said, this chanting should go on. Instead of meetings, resolutions, dissolutions, revolutions, and no solutions, we should be chanting. This is a Hare Krishna movement. And we need idealistic devotees for that. If everything is just buildings and money and corporate policy, I see so many people lose faith. We should show them when good fortune arises. It can arise for anybody. If we just cry in the heart, we have faith in that. So anyway, I want to stop there. I don't know what time it is. Let's see. We're supposed to stop in 15 minutes. So maybe Anupam Prabhu or Madhavananda or Bhavan wants to add something. If somebody has some questions or comments.
Just I wanted to add one thing, that when Gurudeva, he sees you and he gives you instructions, he sees the soul, and where the soul is in relation to Krishna consciousness, and then he gives the instruction for you to go further. That's like I realized when I was there in Bhubaneswar, observing Gurudeva and giving instructions for someone, something, another. Sometimes I was so shocked. But he sees the soul. Where is the soul in relationship to Krishna, in the relationship to the devotional service? And he gives the instruction that you can go further or start.
And he gives different instructions to different persons.
Yeah, very different. Sometimes so shocked instructions
You know,
also.
in 1993, Gour gave me the Govind Srila that we had. And someone else wanted to give it to me. And I went to Gour and asked for permission, and I take it to Gour because he gave his blessings. And then he gave me instructions, Krishna instructions, how to do the puja. Later, another one of our godbrothers, who was senior to me, also had a Govind Srila. And he went to Gour and said, Gour, I like the way Madhavananda is doing it. And Gour chastised him and said, no, that's for Madhavananda. I gave him certain instructions, and you have a different instruction. It's sometimes difficult to understand.
It was very different.
I think it's kind of an internet thing today, that everybody feels a necessity of judging everybody. And they say, oh, Mandalasa, you're sitting next to Damani. So you must appreciate Subhad Maharaj. And you must like Damani, you must like Spanish-speaking people, this and that. And we judge her just because I saw a photograph of you together with her, so you must be. And it's ridiculous. You can't judge someone just on the basis of who's standing next to them, even who they like at a certain point. But we do that so much today, it's something uncommon to see. Anybody else with anything?
I would like to add about Gurudev said you have to cry for Krishna in your heart. And before I met Gurudev, I already practiced this without knowing this. And so in my experience, it really worked. And it was like this, that during my teenage, I read Bhagavad Gita as it is from Prabhupada. And later when I went to ISKCON, I thought I will just find Srila Prabhupada there, or his, the one who's after him. And when I didn't find the next Acharya, when he spoke with devotees, it was said that now there are so many, and then we started to go to all the classes. If we hear that some sannyas had come, some guru, we would go to all the classes, but never felt the satisfaction. And after like 4 years of doing this, I felt so frustrated, very hopeless, very devastated, that I started to pray to Srila Prabhupada that where are you? Where is the next acharya? And where is the person like you? I want someone like you. And but how to recognize him, how to find him, and very frustrated. And only thing I could do was cry. Only by praying to Prabhupada, it's and automatically started to cry because you feel that where can I find this knowledge? How to recognize someone like Prabhupada? And then I found transcriptions of lectures of Srila Gurudev, because Mahesh Pandit, he was already initiated by Gurudev, and he was preaching in Holland Theatre. And then we found those transcriptions of lectures of Gurudev. And those transcriptions were really like faded away because of so many copies were made. But when I read those transcriptions in one of those lectures, Gurudev said, you have to cry for Krishna. And then I realized, this is my Guru. He is saying the thing I experiencing, and I felt confirmed that that this is the way to find the Guru. And then I knew this is my Guru. And so for me, that instruction or that of crying to Krishna and praying to Prabhupada to find your bona fide Guru, that is a very, like a very true thing. And I feel sorry to hear that you have advised them, but that you know that it was not put in practice. Because I think if lots of devotees would do that same thing, you will definitely find their bona fide Guru.
So that's what we speak about all this.
Yes.
You can think that when you cry, and you really cry, what Brahma is called Atma Krama, the crying of the soul. You're crying because you don't see any other solution. You have faith in this, you have faith in Prabhupada, you have faith in Krishna consciousness, but you don't see, maybe you don't see sadhu, and you're just crying and crying. And then Krishna Prabhupada sends you someone, reveals someone that you already knew. That moment, that's mysticism. That's the technical definition of mysticism. You have a spiritual experience, and your faith becomes so strong. As a society, if we can do it, the devotees will be very strong, society will be very strong. On the other hand, if you inform people, you're supposed to have faith. You have to have faith. And then something happens, which happens to a lot of us, and some problem comes, then your faith is broken not only in that person, but in the system. And sometimes devotees lose faith in Prabhupada's mission. They think, oh, this is bogus, everybody's a cheater here. But how can it be? There's so many sincere devotees. There's so many devotees chanting Hare Krishna. Krishna's there. You should just cry. That's what we're doing. Anybody else with anything?
Question
Yeah.
about the crying. What if you're crying but sort of half-heartedly, like it's not sincere enough and you don't have this very strong emotion?
I heard Jayapataka Maharaj give a nice comment once. He said that you should cry. And if you can't cry, you should cry that you can't cry. And if you can't cry that you can't cry, you should cry that you can't cry that you can't cry. But we should cry somewhere. We should begin somewhere. That self-introspection is the beginning of our spiritual life. When we look at ourselves and we see, I have so many shortcomings, I have so many problems. Prabhupada says in Madhavananda, in purport, he says the qualification of a Vaishnava is that he's adoshadarshi. He doesn't see others' faults. My Maharaj commented that a Vaishnava doesn't see others' faults, but he's sarvadoshadarshi. He sees all of his faults or her faults. So we should practice like that. If we're always introspective and seeing our shortcomings and seeing good in other people, then we'll find good and we'll be able to cry. Another point is there too, Guru Maharaj was asked this question a number of times. I'll give you 2 answers that he gave. Once in Africa, they asked him this thing about crime, and his reply was, he said that, what if you're walking, something like this, if you're walking down the street and there's a funeral, somebody died. You don't know the person. Everybody's crying. And it's such a heart. So you also start crying because of that association. So if we associate with devotees who are crying for Krishna, then we'll also cry. But if we associate with devotees who are crying to get a husband, crying to get a wife, they're crying after they've got a husband or wife because of their husband or wife. We're crying for material things, then we'll also cry like that. The second time Jagannatha Guru asked Guru Maharaj this question, so we finished the book with him. We read it. Let's see. It's the end of this, the first section. This book has 2 sections. The first is Guru Maharaj's life, and the second is the teachings. Jagannatha Das. Once I asked Guru Maharaj, you speak so much about how we should feel separation and cry for Krishna. But how can we cry and feel separation if we've never seen Krishna? Guru Maharaj replied, when I leave, then you'll be able to cry. So when we feel a separation from the Vaishnavas, and then maybe we're feeling separation from Prabhupada. I remember joining Los Angeles, and he took us to Chevy Hills Park, where Prabhupada used to go for morning walks, and he took us to Venice Beach, where Prabhupada went for walks, and we used to go and chant japa in Prabhupada's room. I'm thinking, man, I just missed out by like 4 years. I could have been here. You feel some separation like that. Then we can learn to cry. Is that helpful? Good question.
You mentioned that Srila Govind Maharaj had a mission that he will show that everything is in Prabhupada books and everything is his mission. So he left this world. And someone considering him like Diksha Guru, but someone considering him like Shiksha Guru. So Shiksha Guru is like Prabhupada's teachings, is he's supposed to nourish the teaching of Diksha Guru, the teaching of the Acharya. So I learned that this kind of persons have books, and that books are like containing his Shiksha. But someone has to take them in line, in the proper line. So can you have to understand the Srila Govind Maharaj books, how they are in line, like they are teaching somebody, mostly in this book, Abhideya, like that?
That's certainly a fact. We have to take them in our own way. Just like when we sit down to take prasadam, one person has pizza, I can't digest that. I have boiled vegetables or something. We have different things, different items. Although we're all taking prasadam, we may take them at different times and different amounts and like that. So specifically, it's up to each individual and how they'll hear the voice of that person. And if we read Srila Prabhupada's books say we should find a bona fide person. And then if we find a bona fide person, the bona fide person says read Prabhupada's books. So there's a connection between both things. It's not that we give up the books or that we give up the persons. We have both. Both things are important. To what degree will vary. Srila Prabhupada had very little physical association with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He had no association with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But Vishwanath's commentary in the Bhagavad Gita changed his life. And he felt a very close association with him. So my humble understanding is that when we're crying in the heart for Krishna, Krishna will speak to us through the book. And he may speak in a certain way. Once I was in one temple in Delhi, we gave a class, and one IYF, this kind of youth member, came to me afterwards and said, Prabhuji, is it okay if I read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita? I said, what kind of question is that? Of course you should read Prabhupada's, but why are you asking me? He said, well, my counselor says that I shouldn't. Until I've read all of Prabhupada's small books, Path to Perfection, Easy Journey to Other Planets, etc., and then there's Upanishad, then after reading all that, then I can read Bhagavad Gita. And I said, I didn't want to disturb anything with this counselor. I said, well, you're maybe following a systematic way. And maybe he's giving you some personal instruction. That's okay. For your systematic study, maybe that's a nice way to approach the Gita. But on the other hand, we all have personal reading. I asked him, do you ever read the newspaper? He said, yeah. I said, well, if you read the newspaper, why can't you read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita? Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita is more bona fide. But if you want to study in a systematic way, you're studying under this particular teacher, then maybe you'll do like that. So that's my humble understanding, is that it's going to differ for every person. Gour personally gave private instructions to me about what I could read and shouldn't read. And then later the other devotees, he chastised them and said, no, you should not read that, you shouldn't go there. So it's different for different devotees, and that's a very important thing. So often we're attached to what I've gotten from my Gurudev, and then we see someone else doing something different. Prabhupada told Bhagavan Maharaj that he didn't have to chant his japa. He said, anyway, you're doing service, you just do service and that. So I can say, I can say he's in Maya, because he's not chanting his japa. But Prabhupada told him that. Or I can say, yeah, that's a good instruction, I like that. I'll also do like that. But that's imitation. Therefore, we need to have some personal guidance from Guru. That's my comment about that. In direct answer to your question, we should go to Guru, or some Siksha Guru, some higher Vaishnava that we have faith in, and take guidance how to approach those things. In general, I would say that read whatever you inspired to read. I got, one of the first books I saw a Krishna book in 1971 or 72, something. Couldn't understand it. I was a fan of George Harrison and the Beatles. I saw the Chant and Be Happy book in 1978. Couldn't read it, couldn't understand it. Someone gave me a copy of Science of Self-Realization. Couldn't understand it, couldn't appreciate it. And then finally someone came to me and said, this is the only copy I have, it's my personal copy. And they gave me Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is probably the hardest book Srila Prabhupada wrote, the most philosophical. And that book made me devotee. I moved into the LA temple, and someone came and said, hey, Dr. Mark, come here. You should help us clean out the go-down. I'm cleaning out the go-down, and I found a copy of a book, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila Volume 1, in chapters like 1 to 4, which again is like super philosophical. And I said, can I have this? Yeah, sure. I started memorizing verses from that, and it really touched my heart. So that's not the general prescription. Usually we'll tell the devotees to read Prabhupada Limamrita, and then maybe Bhagavad Gita, or whatever like that. And then later Chaitanya Charitamrita, after Srimad Bhagavatam and whatever. But my humble experience is that read whatever you're inspired by. Krishna died in my heart. Is that okay?
How we find his books? How I find his books?
How you find his book?
Yeah.
Talk to the guy sitting next to you. If you're nice to him.
Where the book turned up.
He's like a drug dealer.
And then elaborate this question a little bit further.
Sure.
So often we hear here in this point that devotees shouldn't read Acharya's books because Prabhupada gave us everything. And so if you try to go, especially like Rupa Goswami, Bhavan, for instance, or something like that, is very confidential about Krishna, then it's not good.
Hare Krishna, Nargamuni, don't think you can leave now, but you can't get away from me. Nargamuni, tell him what I said, Krishna.
Yeah, I understand where it comes from, but at the same time, my personal experience was like when I started looking into Bhavan, for instance. And when I read them, I see that I see Srila Prabhupada's teachings. So I see that from the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. It's perfectly clear, and they see how it's related. I haven't read all Srila Prabhupada's books yet, but I have read maybe enough, but not enough, but enough to have some system like that. And when I see this, I see what gave us this. So, and then in the stage of what gave us everything. So he gave us use of all these things. And then it was the right. So from that point of view, it's a good discussion. So don't go there until you have good understanding of what's.
At the same time, we should read Prabhupada's books.
Yeah, definitely.
And Prabhupada, we should do what he says in his books, right? Prabhupada says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, false devotees think that it's not, we should not read the works of the previous acharyas, of the Swami. In Krishna book, Prabhupada says that for devotees who want to be constantly absorbed in Christian thought, they should read Krishna Bhavan by Vishwanath Chakravarti, which is like an extremely elevated book. So we should. Prabhupada says we should read Bhagavatam, we should read in his purport in the first verse from Bhagavatam. He says we should read different commentaries on Bhagavatam. So that's Prabhupada's instruction. But what does it mean? I would suggest that you may have someone who is past the Bhakti Vaibhav, past the Bhakti Vedanta, Bhakti Siddhanta, whatever you call them. He's read all of Prabhupada's books, but he may not understand them. Because an understanding comes not just by reading, but by intellect. Bhakti Bhagavatam Prayam, Buddhaya, not Chatikaya, not Buddhaya, not by our intelligence, not Chatikaya, not just by reading, but Bhakti Bhagavatam. The only way to understand the Bhagavatam is by Bhakti. So, on the other hand, you may have someone who's never read Prabhupada's books, but maybe they know Sanskrit or Bengali, and they've grown up reading the works of the acharyas or something, and they may understand the same principles. So it's not that it's an axiomatic fact that everybody, the Krishna is voice in the sky, everybody has to read Prabhupada, cannot be Krishna conscious. There's so many devotees in Gaudiya Math who don't read English, and they become Krishna conscious. It's not like that, but we should understand the principle of Srila Prabhupada's books. The principle is that we're approaching Srila Prabhupada. It's not just an information, it is a person. And by the blessing of that person, we'll come to understand. And therefore, some people may have a big scholarly understanding of the Bhagavatam, but they don't understand it at all. And therefore, Lord Shiva says, Aham Devi Sukha Vedi Vyasa Vedi Vedi Ram. I understand the Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Swami understands because he heard from Lord Shiva and Bhuvaneshwar. It's a long story. The Vyasadeva, whether Vyasadeva understands or not, I don't know. Because Bhakti Bhagavatam Gana Buddhi Mutatikaya, the only way to understand the Bhagavatam, Jao Bhagavata Pada Vaishnava Stani, is to take shelter of the devotee, Bhakti Bhagavatam. And so that's what we're doing in Srila Prabhupada's books. It's not just we want to pass a test, some information. But we will understand Prabhupada's books and we do service. So, great question. Somebody had something, speak about my hands, not very good.
Thank you for the nice class. I wanted to ask, after we do have a guru, how do we progress past the phase of being a neophyte disciple? Like you said, they think my guru is the best. How do we become a good disciple?
Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Sarita Darshan, in third canto, he says a function of the disciple is to be anubhav of the guru, to follow the mood. That's the business of the disciple. To have someone, I'm not just trying to be anugyan, to follow his information, but anubhav, I want to understand his mood. So Vishwanath comments, he says that we may go to Gurudev and say, Gurudev, what's your bhav? Like what you call the Kriya Sevaka and say, he's at the Mahant table, and say, Mahant Maharaj, what is your bhav? And he's going to say, I don't have any bhav. He may speak like that because he's very humble. So you can't ask him. And Vishwanath gives an example. He said it's just like if you go to a wealthy man and you ask him how much money do they have. He's not going to tell you. So, but you want to understand his wealth. So what you do, you look and see what kind of clothes does he wear? What kind of car does he drive? How many cars does he have? How do his drivers, if he have drivers, how do they dress? How many servants does he have? How do they dress? What kind of house does he live in? How many houses does he have? And from looking at his opulence, watching him, you can understand something about his wealth. So in the same way with Sadhguru, the disciple, Upanishad means to sit close, to come close to Gurudev. So we come close to Gurudev and we try to understand the heart of Gurudev. And Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sangharva, he says this is the way we get bhakti. He said that some people say that Krishna has mercy, but it's not true. Krishna has no mercy. And Guru Maharaj used to say, if you go to Krishna and say, hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, you're the ocean of mercy, Krishna will say, I'm sorry, I gave it away to my devotees. You have to go to them. Therefore, Jiva Goswami says that the Sadhu Guru is Krishna Kripa Shrimurti. Krishna has mercy in the form of his devotees. And Jiva Goswami explains that we should behave in such a way to melt the heart of an advanced Vaishnava. And if we do that, then we'll get their mercy, we'll get bhakti. So that's what it means of Gurudev. We come to Gurudev and we say, Maharaj, please give me your mercy, give me shelter. And that pleases him. Oh, he's sincere, that's very nice. He's pleased when you take the holy name, you take Gayatri Mantra. But if that's the end, initiation means to initiate something, to begin. If we think that's the end, then that may be the end of the mercy also. But if we're thinking this is the beginning, and now let me come close to Gurudev by rendering service, and no matter how difficult it is, no matter if I fall down, no matter if I do terrible things, I'm not going to give up my Gurudev. I'm not going to give up my service. I'll never give this up. If we have that attitude, then we get the mercy of Sadhu Guru, because everybody has problems. Let me read you some prayer that I like reading every day before I jump. This is in Hindi. You're a Hindi speaker? No? Okay, good. Because my pronunciation is not great. Papi hun aparari hun, kota hun ja, kara hun, acha hun ja bura hun, jaisi bhi hun, mainza apaka hun, meri ora niharo, kripa dristi vistaro, hey meri pramadana, nivalo abata apanapana, main hun apake charan saran, hey meri janma janma ke guruja. I may be a sinner or an offender, bogus or genuine, good or bad, however I may be, I am yours. Please look at me lovingly. Shower your mercy-laden glance upon me, O treasure of my heart. Now please count me as your own. I am surrendered to your lotus feet. O my masters, and this is K. Guruja, my master plural, birth after birth. That's our prayer. Okay.
I have two comments. The first is about what your lecture is about, actually, that we how to understand Guru, how to understand the pure devotee, it's not possible. So, I think what worked somehow for us is when we met Gurudev in 94, because you can only, as you say, during the class, but after the class, we speak with all the people who had listened to the class, disciples, followers, and like that. So many people had many questions, and Gurudev answered all of them in the lecture. And so by listening to the classes, and by listening after the classes to the realizations of the devotees about the questions they have for many years sometimes, so just erupting in the class, and then Gurudev answered that class, that question, and then on and on. So the association with the disciples and the followers, just talking about it, that's, I think, solidifies the faith in the Guru, and to some level, trying to understand a little bit of what the mood is of the Guru and like that. And then you talked a bit about Gurudev's life. During that time when Gurudev was here, most of us didn't know all the details. Because it was only some of the Oriya devotees, they knew some details, but nobody, until you published this book, and then you opened it with this partial first biography, got to learn about all the details and how amazing personality, and how, in which family he was born, the place, Gopalji, all these things. So imagine that, had we had known that at that time, how crazy would it, yes, that would have been, isn't it? Anyhow, that's one thing. The other thing is this picture. It was, I think, 94. Either you or I, we took it, somebody, one of us. Anyhow, doesn't
I was
matter.
just telling you earlier, I was there for this.
Yeah, yeah. And apparently it was the evening because it's quite dark in the background. But 94 we met Gurudev in Europe, and then we decided to go to Bhubaneswar. Gurudev said, try to come to Bhubaneswar. We discussed it, and we went. And I never had a camera before because we thought, I should have a camera to make photos of Gurudev, because in that tour in Britain, we didn't have a camera, and it was such nice memories that we couldn't take any photographs. So we thought, let's buy one. So we bought a camera in 94, July something. So whenever we came to Bhubaneswar, we shot in Bhubaneswar, and Gurudev came to our place in 95. And then in 96, up to Gurudev left in Mayapur. So then we went, after Gurudev left, we went to Vrindavan. We did the Vrindavan Parikram. And at one point you come just along the Jamuna, and it's a bit, slippery, and the rocks are there. So the camera fell into the Jamuna. So we bought the camera especially for Gurudev, and after he left, just after that, we took a dip in the Jamuna. End of camera. This one we share.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Gurudev never left. I have one experience. One of our brother or sister. She was here in Mayapur when Gurudev left. And she took a lot of pictures of Gurudev, of that pastimes. And she gave to me from Bhubaneswar. So I kept that picture. All these pictures are so many pictures of Gurudev. And then in my dream I was looking those pictures. And then Gurudeva came to me and he said, I left. What you are looking these pictures? I'm no more there. I left. Then I realized, oh my God, I'm thinking Gurudeva left, but he didn't. And then after that, I was immediately in my dream. I was sitting there in front of Gurudeva Bhajan Kutir. There is a tree there, right? Before. I was sitting there under the tree. And the Gurudeva just came out from the Bhajan Kutir. So I really realized like how Gurudeva never left, And after I didn't want to keep those pictures anymore, I threw all these pictures away. I was thinking,
Are there still copies somewhere?
Yeah.
Are there still copies somewhere?
No, I don't have. I just want to have pictures when he was alive. I don't have any more of all these pictures.
Just short question. Who was very close to Shankar? Close friend like Vaishnava Association, who really kept friendship or...
That's a difficult question. I really hesitate to answer
We
that
don't
question.
know who is his friends.
I remember after Maharaj left, there's one godbrother who Maharaj was so angry with once, he told him get out of the room. And he wouldn't leave. And Guru Maharaj shouted at him, and he wouldn't leave. Guru Maharaj got up and shoving him out. And he was very annoyed with him. And that devotee, I wasn't so impressed with that devotee. But later, when Prabhupada disciple came to Bhubaneswar and spoke with that devotee, and came to me, Prabhupada disciple said, this devotee is the closest devotee to Lord Govinda. So I was a little surprised by that. In fact, it's not the way I think, but it's a relative question, isn't it? You know, if you're asking me, I'll say, well, I think as far as I saw this person or that person, of all the persons he associated with, I personally felt like Fakir was closest with him. Or Bhavan Chandas Babaji, who I didn't really get to see, because of things Govinda's person told me about them. Because they spoke certain things of the heart, certain philosophical things together. That was my personal vision. I really didn't see practically anybody who was really close with Maharaj, even amongst the disciples. And I've seen a lot of disciples who, directly or indirectly, advertise that they're very close to Gurudev. But no, not to me. It's a wonderful question. It's a funny thing, and many times we will just try to take advantage of something. Bhaktivinoda in Saranagati, he calls such a person a Bahimukh Sishya, an external disciple, because they're Anartha Yukta Vasta. They have anarthas in the heart. And their darshan of Gurudev is Bhogya darshan. And he says, they're one of several types of devotees, one of which is the Guru Giri. Guru Giri is someone who's trying to make a business out of their Guru. And they go around and they advertise to everybody, I'm initiated by such and such Maharaj, I have so much association. And subtly, grossly, they're trying to advertise. And if you really want to understand him, subtly you're saying, you become a leader. And there's something to that, like Anupam was saying, it's a fact. I mean, when we get around devotees, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says an amazing thing in one article called the Associates of Sri Chaitanya. He says that the disciple is a separable constituent of the Guru. The disciple is part of the Guru. Well, how big a part? Well, that depends on the disciple. It may be a very tiny part, that he's gotten some mercy, he's gotten some affection, he's heard katha, he can repeat, he's gotten mantra. To the extent that he's been able to receive that, he's a greater or lesser separable constituent. You see the disciple, in that sense, Rupa Swami says, Vishrambena Guru Seva. That when we do Guru Seva, we should become Vishramba. Vishramba means the same, it's another synonym for the word pranaya. Pranaya means to become one with. To become one with Gurudev in the heart. Now, how much? Krishna will reveal that. We're looking, we'll see, by the way, we'll see through our ears. We'll understand who's close, and we can see by what they're doing. Maybe so many people leave. After Guru Maharaj left, one of my godbrothers was preaching to me, he's from France actually, that you got to come to Vrindavan, and there's a sadhu there, and you got to, and I said, Prabhu, if I go there, am I going to keep doing my service for Gurudev? Will you promise that to me? And he was quiet. And I said, I have faith that Guru Maharaj wants me to have association more than I do. And if I please him by staying and doing the service that he gave me, then he'll send me association. And he looked a little confused and said, I guess so. And I said, what do you mean you guess so? How can you have any doubt? Of course Guru Maharaj will take care of this like that. So different devotees will see different ways. And that's the story of our Sampradaya. That's the story of this time. So, anybody else have anything?
You mentioned, I had this question for some time. What is this Vishrambana Guru Seva? What does it look like? How do you get it?
What is Vishrambana Guru Seva? Well, when we have faith, Vasudeva Katha, Vishisham Mahat Sevaya, when we render Mahat Seva, we serve Gurudev, then we get that taste for Krishna Katha. It's only by that taste that we can come to understand Krishna. That taste, that ruchi, is an aspect of bhakti. So we may have faith, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that faith is not enough. He says in some articles he wrote, Bhavan is translated, called Bhakti Tattva, a great book. he says there that faith is not enough. You also have to have ruchi. And if you think about it, I think you've been a devotee for a number of years. So you may have seen devotees who have faith, and they come and they chant, and they come to the temple and they practice, but after some time they leave. But they had faith. Why did they leave? Because they didn't have ruchi. They didn't have taste. And so the ruchi comes when we serve Krishna's devotee, and we please him. As Swami says, I was just quoting, we should act in such a way to help the heart of an advanced Vaishnava. That's not a real politically correct type of behavior in Islam today. People say, you can't trust any of them, they're all bad, don't believe me, but you have to. And if you don't have faith in anybody, then where are we going to go? Krishna's there, Sadhu's there. So have fun.
Relationship with Guru, it makes sense in a Bhakti relationship. If you do something, you can please them, you can see, you can reciprocate. In a body sense, either they're gone or whether they're not there.
He said, why is it that some people have faith in bogus gurus? Or this or that. Really has faith in them. Why do they have faith? But they don't have faith in Prabhupada. They don't have faith in some other sadhu. Or they have faith in bogus literatures, bogus ideas. He said it's because of sin in the heart. Therefore, our process begins Chaitanya Margin. We have to do something. We have to purify our heart. And when our heart becomes pure, to some extent, we can hear the voice of the super soul. There's a Chaitanya in the heart. And he'll whisper to us. Now, how do you know what he's whispering is bona fide? Maybe Chaitanya Guru is telling you you should take shelter with Nitai Guru. He speaks Hungarian and French, and he's a great sadhu. Maybe that's just your mind, or maybe that's really Chaitanya Guru in the heart. How do you know? I would suggest that you really don't know. And we see that. When someone develops faith in a particular person, they don't have the individual responsibility Chaitanya. We're following the Chaitanya in the heart. That you're indirect. Everybody has to do. So let's purify our heart so that we can hear that voice. And then it's a difficult thing because you can't go down it. It's not a matter of lexicography, fancy words. Lexicography is a study of dictionaries. So we have a lexicographical reasons that we want. Lexicographical understanding, dictionary understanding. It's like this, 2 + 2 = 4. But sometimes in Bhakti, 2 + 2 = 3. or it equals 5, and it's not such a cut and dry thing. So that's what I felt from my Guru Maharaj. He didn't stress the institution, the formalities. He stressed Bhakti, but we should be serious and we should approach Bhakti, the Sudha Bhakti. That's really the answer to it. Who understands Krishna, knows Krishna. We go to him. One devotee came, my Guru Maharaj, he's from Australia. And he like, before he joined, he liked pizza pretty much, he liked LSD. He was really into LSD. And once he came to Guru Maharaj, he said, and Guru was kind of leaning closer and said, don't tell anyone. All right, maybe we should go ahead and stop. Thank you all so much. Srila ki jai, Maharaj ki jai.
Yeah, it's just very helpful. Yeah.
So tell her the last is running.
কোনটা? কীভাবে?